Hey there, folks. It's Jay Frost. Welcome to another episode of the Philanthropy Mastermind series. Although, for those of you who have been here before, you may have noticed a little bit of a name change, and that's by design. Now, every single Thursday this year, 2025, we will be having an episode of what we're now calling How to Raise, our CFRE accredited series of training sessions with the leaders in the field to help you get the information you need in order to do the work that you do, as well as to pick up those CFRE credits if you're either applying for or looking to renew your certified fundraising executive status. It's really a pleasure to, of course, welcome our guest today, who I'll be introducing to you in a minute. But I first want to welcome all of you, encourage you to do as many of your colleagues are doing and say hello in the chat. Maybe let our presenter today know which part of the country or the world you're from, what organization you work with, that sort of thing. That's a very helpful tool as he shares today. And in addition, you can also use that as a way to ask your questions, make your comments throughout. We also have the Q&A. I hope you'll take full advantage of both of those to fully participate in the conversation today. Also, you're going to find at the very conclusion a survey. So before you totally disappear, whenever you do today, make sure you fill that out so we will know what you need to see and hear this year. We will take your suggestions very seriously as we do all the programming for the year. You can also sign up to be a part of the regular mailing list to know about our program. So do all that right there at the conclusion of the session today. Now, of course, you're here to find out about Fundraising 101, best practices. And who better to tell you all of that and much more, if you had the time, than Ken Miller, someone who's been here before. He's done an episode of the podcast, so you can listen to that also after today's episode, and also other sessions in our training curricula. And we'll be returning in our Tuesday show in the weeks ahead as his new book is released, which I'll tell you about in a minute. Ken Miller is a nationally recognized fundraising consultant, speaker, and author. As the president of Denali FSP Fundraising and Grant Consultants, if you don't know them, look them up. He provides expert guidance to nonprofits, including fundraising audits, campaign development, grant writing, and board training. Ken previously served as director of development for Beans Cafe, where he led a transformative fundraising effort. He's a board member at AFP Global, the African American Development Officers Association, and Brothers to Brothers. He also serves on the advisory board of Men of Color in Development, and has held leadership roles with the AFP Canada Foundation Board and the Dartmouth Club of Alaska. Ken is committed to our field as a whole, but particularly known for his work in mentorship, equity, and empowering communities through sustainable philanthropy. And you can look for his new book, Becoming Ken, when it comes out March 15th. Pre-orders are being taken now, but he's not going to be talking about that. Ken will be sharing, of course, on his own guidance on Fundraising 101. Ken, thank you so much for being here today.
And I want to thank you, Jay, very much. And also want to thank DonorSearch for allowing me the opportunity to share, because I love to share. So let's get started. We have a lot to go through. This is going to be literally the foundation and the fundamentals of building your fundraising team or your annual campaign. So let's get right into it. So we will start right here. I will go here, share. Okay. All right, Fundraising 101, best practices for nonprofits. And again, my name is Ken Miller. I'm a CFRE, and my company is Denali Fundraising Consultants. And next one. Okay. Again, I've introduced myself. I just want to always, and I almost always start this so you get an understanding of why am I here? Why do I do this at no fee? And I do this to give back to this sector and to this field. The real simple version is I was homeless for 20 years on the streets of Seattle, Reno, Sacramento, and Jackson, Mississippi. I'm also a 3-time convicted felon. I've been many years behind bars. But as of September 24th of last year, I celebrated 20 years clean and sober. And when I got out of prison the last time, I needed and felt to give back. And the first job I got into the fields of development was at a soup kitchen called Beans Cafe. That's my why. That's why I do this and why I want to help others who are doing things in their community, whether it's arts and culture, environmental, whatever it may be. I always like to let people know how many slides. It's 37 slides. We have about 50 minutes, 45, 50 minutes. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. I want to give you the overview of fundraising. If you are a new person, even intermediate, even an advanced person, there might be a few things that you may hear that will be interesting or something you're like, oh, I never thought about that. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat, and then Jay will ask me those at the end, and we'll be able to go from there. And then I always say this, thank you. Thank you for your investment in self. Thank you for your investment to this sector. Thank you for your investment for your professional development. Okay. So fundraising, what do we do? How do we do it? First thing I always will say to every client, I've worked with over 130 clients in my 10 years as a consultant. I always want to say, set your goals and your budget. Set your plan. What is your plan? What's our goal? What are we trying to raise? What are we trying to increase? Whether it's individual donors or individual dollars from donors and organizations. There's some things I am very, very strong about when I talk. And I teach fundamentals for AFP Global, 16 hours. I teach that. Been teaching it for 10 years plus. Be teaching again this year with a good friend, Jack Alon. But when I teach this, I always say there's only two sources of money or funding for for a nonprofit, and that's individuals and organization. Always understand that when we start doing this training, which one is this one? Organizations, this individuals. So what do you? I want to set my plan. I also want to set my calendar. When am I going to do things? And what are those things I'm going to do throughout this annual calendar or annual plan? Then we have organizations, and we would call them grants, but there's another word. We use request for fundings or request for support, RFF or RFS. We have our acronyms within our community, who, when, how much. And we'll look at this a little more in depth. And then there's donations from individuals. We have mailers, we have online, we have major gift work, and we also have events, among others. And those are donations from individuals. Okay, so you're setting up your 25, and this is a great time to kick off this series. This is a great time to start looking at the things that we'll be talking about over the next 45, 50 minutes. So when you set up your campaign for the year, the first thing I always want you to ask is, what are my goals? And then what is the plan to meet those goals? When do we do it? Real important, who does it? Because sometimes, or many times, you're a part of a team or you're leading a team and you need to know who does it. Then we follow the plan, but we adjust as needed. That's the implementation. That is important. Then we track results, and then we thank. I'm a big one on thanking. Within probably 2 to 3 months of when I started as a fundraiser in 2010, someone asked me, what do you do? And I said, I thank people for a living. That's what I do. I thank people for a living. And I still believe that to this day. Okay. All right, plan and calendar. We want to have in the calendar corporate requests. Those are those requests for fundings or government grants, but organizational requests. We want to have in there our mailers. We want to have in what events are we going to do. We want to have in our digital and also our Giving Tuesday and our end of year. What are we going to do at end of year, or what I call the holiday campaign? And then anything else miscellaneous to our organization or specific to our organization. Okay, here is an example of a fundraising calendar. And again, you will get this slide deck. Go back to it. Take a look at it. I made this 15 years ago, 12 years ago in Excel. And again, all we want to say is, what month are we doing it? What are we doing? What is a specific detailed item? What type is it? And then I put a forecast, and those are in thousands. And that's, again, it's just a forecast. It's a guesstimate. Best guesstimate I have. But you'll see on here, there are grants, there's mailers, newsletter, there's marketing. And if we were to go down, there would also be online and events. Okay, but we've just created, keep it simple, but let's do that. And it's something that you can show to your team or you can show to the individuals that you report to. Okay. When we're doing the organizational request for fundings, and I always start with organizational requests for fundings as opposed to working with individuals. And why do you do that, Ken? The reason I do that is because it's a finite number. It's a finite number within your community or your area. There are only so many organizations that will support you locally. And so I know what those are. I will find out where those are, and there are ways to find those out. But we want to always have our background documents, which we'll talk about here in a minute. And I'd always like to do 10 to 20. I had 200 organizations. I'm from Anchorage, Alaska, that would support my nonprofit. And it was my job to get out a request to every single one of them. I was very fortunate. Out of 200 requests that I made to organizations, I had support of approximately 190, which is very rare. It's 95%, but I knew what I was doing and I had a good process for doing that. We create a template, and this is important that you understand what this means. There are only two ways to submit a request for funding or a grant. There's online, that means they have an online portal. Just fill it out, upload the information that's coming from background documents, and you make the ask. The other one is an email to the individual that handles the corporate support. And those individuals, you need to have a template. I learned this, not even the hard way, I just learned it early on, and it was very successful for me. And I'll show you that. You need to find these funders or donors, but they're really funders. And I used Alaska Business Monthly, and I found all the largest corporations or companies and organizations within my area, which was Anchorage, Alaska, South Central Alaska. And what I did is I reached out to every single one of them. Do you do corporate support of nonprofits? And it was 500, and I ended up, or 600, I ended up with about 200. And those were phone calls. I did it myself the first year, and then about the third year, I went to do it again, and I hired someone to do that. Find the appropriate ask amount and month, real important. When I would speak to the corporate support individual, I would ask them, what is a range? That's the word. You don't want to use a specific, but what's the range that you guys are comfortable with for me to submit an RFP, a request for proposal? And what month do you take them? Because they're very specific. ConocoPhillips, Alaska is always July, always. Northern Bank is always October. So you need to know when, and you need to know how much. Then we track results and we thank and acknowledge appropriately. Okay. These are the things that you will need approximately, and each individual organization will have a little different, but these are things you're going to need for your request for fundings. You're going to need letterhead, logo, 501c3 letter of determination, board list with 100% giving. You need the IRS. Just look at this. This was, again, an Excel spreadsheet, and then check off, and that you have all of these items. And then what we'll need is the template, and we need a list of who the funders were going to be sending out either online or via email. This is an example of an RFF template. This is not the full one because I've truncated this, this presentation from literally 4 hours to 45 minutes. But if you do want one, please just send me an email, and for free, no problem. I will send you an example template. But in the template, it has, a cover. It has the letter that we want to send out to them. But more importantly, it has this information. And look at this information, because what was happening is individuals would send this letter making a request through the email, and it's not enough information for them to make a determination. And so I spoke to the funders, and they told me, these are the things we need, Ken. We need your history. We need what the request is. Who are your beneficiaries? Very important. What is the recognition and benefit to us as the funder? What other commitments do you have? What is the total program? So this is what goes into a template, and it's literally a template. And then I can use a Microsoft Word mail merge, and I can fill out, and I would fill out literally 50 or 60 of these in less than a half hour and send them out in less than 2 hours. I would have 60 requests for fundings could go out within less than a half hour, literally, after I had it filled out through a mail merge. Okay. All right, grants. Grants are, so the request for fundings are coming from corporations and companies. Grants are coming from foundations and governmental sources. These are places to look for grants. And what we do is we describe what we do, and we go to these different sites. Again, if you would like this list, just let me know. I'll send it to you. These are all clickable links. I want to make this easy for you. I want your success. Okay, so those are places for sources to find grants. And then the key, the big kahuna is grants.gov for federal grants if you can't apply for those. Okay, that's corporate and organizational requests. Now let's talk about some direct mail. Direct mail, the most important thing in direct mail. I do a 4-hour deep dive on direct mail for AFP Global. It's a great class. If you're interested in it, that's on you. But I always say the most important thing in direct mail is your list, period. Is your list. Okay? The content of the letter, the envelope, if we do a splash on it, the remit envelope, the number 10, all that goes secondary to the list. So clean up your donor list, and then purchase or create the best acquisition list possible. And I have acquisition lists. The acquisition lists that I use, and I'm just gonna say this real quick because I can go way far in depth on this, is what I'm looking for is white female, 55 plus, with capacity or wealth. That is the list. That is literally your best bang for your dollar. And also I want to do a geographic within 100 miles of my location. Sometimes I'll use 50 for some of my clients. That works. Okay, but get the best acquisition list possible. Make sure you take care of your envelopes. I usually buy envelopes in bulk, and then I'll spray it for the campaign, which means I'll spray something. I'll have the printer spray something on the envelope itself, stating which campaign this is. Okay, whether it's a spring campaign, the holiday campaign 2025, whatever it may be. But it's just a tagline. It doesn't say that. It says a tagline, and then I know which one. I can assign the dollars that come in to that. This is a big one for me. Assign your horizontal string or start your horizontal ask string with $50. Don't do the 25. Start with 50. You'll get the same results and you'll get a higher average give, period. Okay? Make sure you have nonprofit status and mailer ID. Work with your mail house on that. Then on the letter, ask, who is my donor? Who is my donor? And you can look at your donor list. You can put your donor list potentially in AI, which we'll talk a little bit at the end, and it'll give you a good representation of what your donor list represents. Okay? But then make the donor the hero. That's again. So I always say there's only 2 things in fundraising. 2 things: content and delivery. That's it. Content and delivery. Most people are good in one or the other, but especially with AI, you can be good in both. Okay. I was always great in delivery. My content left a little to be desired. That means the content of the letter, whether it's digital or the content of the ask. So always understand that. But if you want good content, work with making it donor-centric content. I love Tom Ahern. I love Jeff Brooks. And there's more to that we'll show here in a minute. Okay. And then, oh yes, always have a match. Always have a picture on your direct mail, because the picture involves the emotional part of the brain. Always have a match. XYZ will match all donations up to $5,000. Your donation now goes twice as far to support what we do in our community. And then the power of the PS. The number one thing that drives online donations are direct mail. It's the number one, still to this day. It's not Facebook. It's not email. If you do your direct mail well, it'll be the number one driver of your online donation. Because what I always do, to make a secure online matched donation, please visit our website at www.beanscafe.org. Thank you. I haven't done that in 15 years, still remembering. That's your PS. And so let's look. go where it is. Oh, let's go up more. You want to get your regulations right. You want to make sure that it's automated, and you talk to your mail house about that. Can't go into that too much in depth. You can work with, are we doing a letter? Are we doing a flat? Are we doing a postcard? I've done all three. You put that into your calendar. Make sure you have your mailer ID. We call it a MID. Make sure you have that. Just go up USPS mailer ID, and you can get that. Get your nonprofit status. And so you can get the rate of 18 cents as opposed to a 57 cents or 60 cents first class mail. And then always run national change of address. People who are taking notes, please take this down. True NCOA. True NCOA. It is a company I've been working with for 10 years. I don't get anything from it. I never would. And I don't what they call bird dog. I will never get like a affiliate fee or whatever. I don't do that, period. But go to True NCOA for $20. For a whole year, they will go through your list and let you know people who are moving or have moved. It's incredible. One of the best things I've found in 15 years. True NCOA. Okay. 5 hints for a donor-focused fundraising story. So now we're talking about the content. Number one, say you a lot. Boy, I had to put that in red. Say you all the time. I am writing to you. You can help. The difference you can make because it's donor-centric. It's not like, hey, we've done this. Hey, our nonprofit has, did 42 plays this year. It's not about us. It's about you, Mr. and Mrs. Donor. Your donation. Those are sentences, all of those I've used. Put the donor in the story. I wish you could see it. You'd understand right away. And you're talking to this person. One of the things we've always said is write as though you're writing to your great aunt. That's always a good one. I'm so thankful to have friends like you supporting our mission to feed and shelter those in need in Anchorage. Oh, right, like your Aunt Ruth. There we go. Not like the incredible Hemingway that you are, or the incredible Faulkner that you are, or whatever your favorite fiction writer is. Okay? Have your heart on your seat. Bring in the emotions. No problem with that. It broke my heart. I've never seen something so inspiring. I thank God for people like you. I'm telling you, and let me also say, these slides, these last 5 are permission from Jeff Brooks from Future Fundraising. I think he's one of the best fundraisers in the United States. Please check out his free blog because he's great. He's great. And he's out of Seattle, where same location I am. Okay. Avoid statistics. Oh my goodness. Please, please avoid statistics. This is something I teach when I teach content. It's the power of one. It's the power of one. And what it means, we tell one story about one person or one thing that has been done for the community or one trail, whatever it may be. It's the power of one, because literally the brain works differently when we give it large numbers as opposed to be able to articulate and think about one. Okay, so always remember the power of one. So that's one of the reasons we get away from statistics. Because again, it's working with the rational part of the brain. There's very little about statistics that 1 billion is different than 1 million. It doesn't even really generate a change emotionally. Okay, so we'll move it. So those are 5 things to avoid. Okay, so now let's move on to digital. So we have direct mail to work with individuals. Now we have digital to work with individuals. Number 1 is website. And that's probably the most important because that's your portal. Everything from social media, from Google, from email is going to be sent to your direct mail. I mean, it's going to be sent to your website. So we have to get the website right. Okay, this is a best practices website. I just did a presentation last week and went into website audits for an hour, but I'm going to do this in 5 to 10 minutes. But we're going to learn something. Number 1, donate button. It's a button. It's not a clickable word. It's a button. This is probably the most important thing I can tell you about website design. Is it thumbable? Is it thumbable? Because we're all looking at all our emails and almost everything that's coming our way through our device, our phone device, iPhone, Google, whatever it may be. Okay, number one. Number two, in the header, do you have an address? Many people, donors especially, will come to your website to find your address. And I've gone to websites, I couldn't find the address, or it's in the footer in reverse print at an 8-point, type. Okay. Another thing I really love to see, and I'm going to go again and go through all the things I would do. Do you have a tagline? You have a name, but we have to involve people emotionally. We have to involve them emotionally. And then I have a carousel here with an emotional picture with another tagline. Okay. And then I have my social media buttons. Okay. That's just above the fold. Websites are built in three pieces. You have your header, you have your body, and you have your footer. Okay. This is the body, and this is your footer. And the key thing I just want to say is that please, please, please have a newsletter sign up. One of the best things you can do for digital online donations is to grow your email list. It's probably one of the most important things. Number two behind a direct mail PS. Second thing I always want to see, I love video. It involves people emotionally. So I have a video for the feeding hungry children, feeding hungry adults. Then right here, these are called trust marks and bona fides. But I like trust marks. And in the trust mark, those are people that are vouching. Those are third parties that are vouching for us. Okay. And so I have 5 of them. And we have Charity Navigator, we have GuideStar, better known as Candid today. We have BBB and 2 other ones. And then there's some more, Get in Touch. The only other thing I really, please have at the bottom somewhere that this is a 501c3 organization and here is our tax ID. Feel free to go to Candid and look us up. Donation page. Bona fides, again, 2 most important pages are your home page and your donate page. Okay, this is a lead paragraph. You can have it or not have it, but that's 2 schools of thought. I usually have it. This is the body. The only thing I want to say on this, because I can go through this again for a while, is have that. This is called a horizontal ask string. I started with $50. Get away from that 25, 10, 5, whatever. They can always put other. So I did an A/B test with 8,000 donors. And I had the same amount of donations, but the average donation was $17 more. That's all I need to hear. That's all I need to hear. Once I changed from 25 to 50, I had 4,000 go out with a $25 anchor ask string, and I had the same exact mailer go out with a 50. And then please have that in memory of, in honor of, and comment, because that's stuff I want to put also into my DRM, my donor relationship management software. Okay, definitely. And again, you see at the bottom here, we have our trust marks. And of course, this is that same footer that's on every page. And I'm a big one on having a phone number. Please have a phone number on, because people want to call you or write you, send you a check, or make a donation online. Okay, social media. This is my social media checklist that I work with clients. You can take a look at this later on. I'm not going to go through all of them, but these are all clickable links. And again, if you want it, let me know. I will send it to you. Okay. Google's, as you know, very important. They have 80, 85% of the market, if not more. They had gone up, and then Microsoft put in Bing, and they made it the default. And so Microsoft's numbers went up a bit for their channel, their port to go to the web. But anyway, we want to do different things in Google. I can't go into each of them, but definitely, if I could just say 2 of them, sign up for Google Nonprofits. That's a no-brainer. That's free. And then really look into Google Grants at some point. Look into Google Grants. And then I probably would also Google My Business. Okay. This is the Google Ad Grants. I was the first one to do Google Ad Grants in the state of Alaska for a nonprofit. And what I got is I was the first ranking SEO for almost anything to do with nonprofits in the state of Alaska. And it brought me in a lot of money. I took my team from $8,000 when I started. 3 years later, we're doing $250,000 on online donations alone. 1.2 million in direct mail. Okay, this stuff works. So look at the Google, because it's free. It's $10,000 worth of Google ad grants for free. But there is a lift. Okay, Facebook. Real simple on Facebook. You want to make sure you have a good Facebook nonprofit page, and you want to make sure you're boosting posts and events. Okay. Here's an example of a page I created for Rotary. But the key thing that I want to make sure is everything in the about is filled out. Everything. And there's a bunch of things because people are going to your about page to see if you are legitimate. They're going to go to 3 places. They're going to go to your website. They're going to go to Candid, formerly known as, I can't even remember. Let's call it Candid, GuideStar. That's all I grew up with is GuideStar. And they're going to go to potentially your Facebook to see if you're legitimate. Because most of you don't have a LinkedIn company page, but I'd recommend it. Okay. So, and then have a call to action button. Usually it would be right here. This is an older one, and have either contact us or donate now. Okay. This is one for email I love. On your email signature, in my nonprofit, everyone had to have this. Oops, sorry. Had to have, where did you get that? Okay, had to have this tagline and a clickable link just twice a year. One, we have a thing called Pick, Click, Give. Let's not talk about that one. But for the holiday campaign, for sure. And I had pushback from staff. And the executive director told the staff, yes, you will do this. And then when they saw the amount of money that was coming in that I was able to raise, they were so happy that, Ken, what else can we do? Because they went toward their programs. That's what I'm raising money for, is your program. So email signature, real important, especially during specific, if not the whole team or the whole organization, at least you will have a tagline with a clickable link and button, if possible, to the campaign that you're working on at that time. Predominantly, your big 2 are going to be your spring campaign, which is usually April, May, and your holiday campaign, excuse me, for sure in December, November, December. And I'd probably have a clickable, and I would change it up for Giving Tuesday and end of year. Okay. E-newsletter, big believer in e-newsletters. And one thing I'll just say real quick about e-newsletters is have the e-newsletter. And if you're not doing a printed one, especially have an e-newsletter, but always talk about planned giving. Always talk about, have a whole section that every time that e-newsletter comes out, there's a section on planned giving, okay? Or, gifts, legacy gifts is what I love to call it. Okay? E-blast, and that's just your email. I just want to show you just a real quick some of the things, what makes this effective. Obviously, pictures. And I got permission. This is the organization I work with. In fact, I was on their original board. I did this one for free. Working with at-risk youth in boxing, teaching art. But the key thing is I have a clickable link again at the bottom. It's not even a link. It's a clickable button. Remember, is it thumbable? Is it thumbable? And again, we have pictures that involve, children. We're helping children, from marginalized communities, ... Okay? And that's your e-blast. So I can go into a lot more subject and salutation, all that good stuff. But again, this is an overview. I want you to start thinking about, am I in these 4 areas and what are we doing? Okay, events. I'm not the biggest fan of events, but let's talk about it because for many organizations, you have what are called legacy events, and I'm cool with legacy events. And I always say to my clients when I teach about events, number 1, is it a friend raiser or is it a fundraiser? Let me say it again. Is it a friend raiser or is it a fundraiser? Okay. So the reason events somewhat do poorly, there's a lot of local ones, as you know, they can be very costly if you look at the true ROI. because you have to put in the labor costs, okay? But if you are going to do events, you can acquire new supporters, you get names. I have never run an event, probably after my first 6 months as a fundraiser, where we did not have a sign-in sheet, where you put your name, only thing I care about is your name and email, name and email, name and email. Okay, so I can grow that email list. And you are part of what we call an affinity list because you're connected to the organization. Many of you have donated, but many of you haven't. Okay, get addresses. You can put that on there, and you get it from when they sign up for the event. But at the event itself, I always have a sign-in sheet which has the emails, and we get the emails. Involves your volunteers, gives them value. A valued volunteer is a good donor. Involves the board. Many times when we don't have events, the board is maybe not as engaged. And usually I will do a training of the board on how to speak about the organization and to make a soft ask of an individual, okay? Promotion and branding, of course, fundraiser of the nonprofit, and can be profitable, especially what I always say on an event, give it 2 years, give it 2 years. Major donors, and we're going to be wrapping up here soon. So first thing you have to do with major donors is you have to identify what is a major donor. A major donor for small organizations is a lot different from a major donor for the New York Philharmonic. I can guarantee you. Right? What I usually do is a 500 single gift. You become a major donor because I'm going to treat you differently. And then also for me, major donors are also anybody that's a monthly or regular donor. And I'm talking about, they can be a monthly, but it's usually monthly, but sometimes it's quarterly. Okay. If you're one of those two, I'm going to obviously treat you differently and tell you my favorite donors of all time are regular donors. You have the highest propensity for a planned gift from regular donors. It's the lady who's been donating for 17 years, $50 a month. That's the person that will leave you money if you operate or work with them well and steward them well. Pareto principle, which states very simply, 20% of anything is going to produce 80% of your results. And I believe in that 100%. And in fact, I went to a presentation, it was Pareto Square. Top 4% will produce 60% of your donation if you're large enough, okay? First meeting, when I meet them, I just want to thank you. I want to find out the most important thing I ever do when I work with a major donor. If I'm working new or I'm teaching, working with major, why? Why did you support us? Why did you support it? And then I always paint a picture of the future because they cannot donate to the past. They can't even donate to the present, just went by. So I'm always giving them, hey, we're real excited in 2025 that we're going to be doing X, Y, Z, okay? And then at the ask meeting, there's a whole scenario. Usually it's the highest ranking person you possibly can get, but you may be doing it. And then I do role playing. Again, I want to thank you, for taking the time to meet with us. And I want to thank you for, if I remember correctly, you supported us because we provided shelter for your son-in-law. Okay, remember we were a shelter. Okay, and then the why, talk again about the future plan, and then I will go into the specific amount. Okay, your support this year at the level of $5,000 will allow us to do X, Y, Z. Would you be open to that? And then I shut up. That's one of the hardest things to teach people, to shut up and allow them to think, yay, nay, or not now. And it's been rarely no, because many times they're already understanding why we're going to have this meeting. Okay. Final thoughts. Thank promptly. We would thank within 24 hours. It would come in the direct mail. We would open it. We'd process it. And I had a team of volunteers that came in 5 days a week, because that's how many donations we were getting, 5 days a week. And they would write handwritten thank yous on a card. Okay. Facilitate the relationship between the donor and the mission. It's not about the donor and the nonprofit. It's about the donor and the mission. Try something new, folks. Try something new. Go into one of the deep dives that'll be happening the rest of this year, or one of the ones at AFP or at the Lilly School, or whoever's going into these deep dives, and learn new things and try it out. A/B testing. Enjoy the process. Enjoy the process and the journey. Help others. And with that, any final questions? This is my information. You can call me. I only have one phone. And if I can pick it up, I will pick it up. Here's my email. Here's my website. And here's my favorite blogs. You see Jeff Brooks is the first one on that list. And with that, I will call it a day and stop the share and take some questions.
Okay, but don't go away, because we had a ton of questions. Thank you so much, Ken. People are really eating this up, and I'm going to answer all these technical or logistical questions, and then let you answer all the material ones.
Okay.
But before I dive into that, I want to let everybody know what's coming up next, so you can mark your calendars, because as you were just saying, it pays to keep abreast of the best in the field. We have a session on Tuesday coming up on our Frontlines program with Brian Saber of Asking Matters and Dave Raley, who's the author of The Rise of Subscription Giving. And you've alluded many times to the importance of that today. So that comes up in our Frontline series. That's on Tuesday at 1 p.m. And then on Thursday of next week, another CFRE accredited program is on mastering donor retention, strategies to prevent and recover lapsed donors. That's with James Misner. So once again, just 1 week from today. And then on the podcast, if you're interested in the personal stories side of the field, you can hear Peyton McGriff this weekend. She's the founder of She, and she was one of the top 5 CNN heroes of 2024. Great personal story. I'm sure you'll enjoy that. Now, the two biggest, most persistent questions were, A, will you get a recording? And the answer is yes. So we are making a recording of this. You will be receiving an email if you're attending today, and that email will have a link to this recording. So know that that's coming to you. It will also be posted to the DonorSearch YouTube channel and to the DonorSearch website within the next 24 to 48 hours. But Ken, many people have asked about the slide deck. So is that something you're willing to share? And if so, would you like them to come to you? Do you want to share it with us to distribute? What makes the most sense for you?
It's in the chat.
It's, the slide deck?
Yeah. Yeah, I put it, it's a PDF. I put it in the chat.
There we go. Okay, so everybody, if you can't see that, we'll make sure that Jack copies that out and pastes it again. Now let's just jump right into the rest of the questions. So they started back really early. And one of the questions was just, when it all boils down, is it worth the cost to hire someone, to hire a fundraiser?
What is the cost to hire a fundraiser?
No. Is it worth it to make that investment?
Oh, for sure. 100%. Is there a higher number than 100? Yes, 1000%. Because, so two things, this is a great question. So what a fundraiser does is it brings in revenue for the organization. And I've always taught that within year 2, you're a 4-to-1. You are a 4-to-1. What that means is, if my benefit and burden of hiring me is $60,000, I should be bringing in $250,000 within 2 years. And I can do that from any I can literally do that from any organization, anywhere, especially has at least some corporate. Because if you have no individual donors, it may take a little longer, but there's still grants out there. There's community foundations, and there are corporations and organizations that will support what you do if you're a nonprofit. So yes, 100%. But yeah. So let's go to the next question.
There are a few like that where it's really going to pay to tell that story, Ken. Thank you. How long do those RFPs need to be or not be?
How long do they need to be? The offline. So we have online and offline. The one that's an email attachment is 2 to 3 pages. Okay, because it has a cover. You saw it. It has a cover letter, and then, but it's digital, so it doesn't really matter to me. And then it just has on literally 2 pages all that information that you'll see in the slide deck.
There were a lot of comments about your template, and I know that people can get that. Once again, you had that, I think, in your last slide about how people can reach out to you for that, correct?
Yes, and I'm gonna put the template in the chat right now.
Perfect. Okay, thank
You'll
you.
love it. You'll love it. So look at this template because you're going to love it because everything in yellow, you change and put your information in. So the template's in there.
Let me see. We have a question that's there are a lot of grants for research. Do they support feasibility studies and travel to project sites?
Yes, depending on the grant. So I have a company, we have 4 grant writers. So anything in the grant world, I know too. I wasn't really talking about the grant world, but again, that's one of my bailiwicks. Yes, there are. Yeah, they literally support anything in the research world, including salaries, travel, because how do you go to do the research without the travel?
Absolutely. Well, and then there was another question along those lines: is if whether or not there's a special grant site for international projects.
Is there a special grant site? No, but the federal government has tremendous US aid is one I can think of right off the top of my head that has a tremendous amount of international. Department of Commerce will do international. Yeah, so remember there's like 13 different appropriations committees and those are the groups within the federal government that appropriate money and stand up grants. God, I could go on this for a while, so I'm not going to. Yes, there is. So just go to grants.gov, set up your account, which is free, and then you can put in as a keyword international.
And that's true for the private funders as well, right? I mean, if you mentioned Candid earlier, there are some private funders that will fund international projects.
For sure,
Yeah.
for sure. And mainly private foundation. There's some private foundations, all they do. There's Jewish foundations that do a lot of work in Israel. Okay, I know that one. So yes.
We had a question about mail houses. If you or anybody in the group has any recommendations for mail houses that they've enjoyed working with.
I don't, because mine are Alaska. Okay, and I knew every mail house in Alaska, or at least in Anchorage, all 5 of them, and I had worked with all of them. So what happens is just look up mail houses, and then what I do is ask for them. I look at 3 of them and ask for them to give a quote or have a rep come out and talk to us.
Well, maybe another question to follow up on that then is, what do you look for in a really good mail house relationship? Because for those who aren't familiar with how to do that vetting process, what are the things that you think really stand out as the signs that it's going to be a good partner, or maybe the warning signs of somebody who's not going to be one?
Relationship. It's a relationship. You have a sales rep, almost always. You'll have a sales rep, unless the company's so small, the owner does it. But you'll have a sales rep, and you want to build a relationship just like you do when you steward a donor. They're stewarding you if they're good. And what you're wanting to do is 2 things: build a relationship, because there are going to be times where your timing is tight. And hey, can you bump me up? Because they have literally a queue of all their printing. It's really, I work with a print house. They're printing firms. It just happened to do mail. But anyway, you want to build that relationship. The things and then you want to look at their costs. And what I do is, and then if you can, build a relationship with a mail house that would allow you to store envelopes. Because what I would do is I would get all my envelopes from envelopes.com back in New York, or from the mail house, depending. But I would buy 200, 250,000 envelopes, because I'm doing that kind of mail. And they would just store them there and pull down from those and then spray it. Remember we said about the spray? They would spray it, so I knew which campaign it was. So build that relationship.
There's a question here which I'm sure you can address. It's a common concern, which is about the balance between physical and non-physical mail. And the question was, are there stats on the dominance of direct mail contributing to fundraising responses, especially in recent years? How have you seen that change, Ken? And what are your recommendations on, especially with testing, how much to go physical, how much to go digital?
Direct mail, 100% is by far the best way to get individual donations, period. Okay, 15 years ago, we didn't think that was going to be that way. We thought digital was going to take over, and digital went up fast, and then it was like and we might get 20%. But direct mail is 60, 70% of your individual donations outside of events. Because again, who is your donor? 55 plus, white female with money. And I can talk about that for a half hour, why that is your donor, but that's your donor, okay? And I would say 90% of my donors were women, 90. Now it would say Mr. and Mrs. Bob and Jane Johnson, but then we looked at all the checks and they were all signed by the woman because she wrote the check. It's just the way the check is inputted into our CRM. We put the full name from the address block.
Yeah, we have to be very careful with those names, acknowledging people appropriately. Yeah. There were a number of comments about Google because you really told a great story about the Google ad grants and how much revenue was pulled in as a result of the placement, and it was a great story. But we still have people who have been through the trials and tribulations of Google. And so one person had said, Google's been very difficult to navigate. We got approved, but couldn't understand how to use it. There's so much admin work. So these are real pains and concerns. What would you say to people who have had those troubles in the past as they're thinking about it today?
So what I would do is say, invest another $1,000, $2,000 and get a good Google ad grants consultant. That's what I did. I hired somebody out of Toronto to set it up for me. And they set it up very, very well to set it up for me because I didn't know it's a heavy lift, believe me. And it's a lot more difficult now because you used to be able to set your keywords and just leave them. But Google doesn't want you just to leave them. You have to like go in there every month and adjust your keywords. Okay, as part of it. I can go into some more in depth. Google does not make it quote unquote easy to set up, but they're giving it for free. It's $10,000. So and then you got to understand, why do I want it? What is it going to, am I a type of nonprofit that if I'm number one in SEO, organic SEO search, it will behoove me or our organization. Just think, okay, so you just type in food bank in Chicago. Well, there may be 20 of them. And does it behoove me to be number one as a food bank in Chicago? No. So anyway, I would recommend looking. And then again, I always do your due diligence. Ask 3 consult. Can you go Google Ad Grants or Google AdWords Consultant, and then get 3 and have them send you proposals.
Ken, a lot of us now, when we're doing a search, we're going to see up at the top of the Google search an AI result coming from Google if we're using Chrome. And so in your experience so far, would you say that still doing these things is beneficial, not just for the results we see underneath all those links and placement, but also with the AI results that if we're let's say a food bank, and we want to make sure that we're visible to people who are thinking about feeding the hungry, then is it also going to be as important, not just in the Google results, but also in what AI ends up generating for people about where they should focus their attention and time?
Yeah, well, the AI should, and I've never used it for a search, so I don't want to say something I don't know. I do know quite a bit about AI. One of the things I said on there, please fill out your Google business profile. Please fill that out. That is, because when Google scrapes, you don't even have a business profile. So why should I even rank you when you don't have that? Okay. So I would number one, I would do that. And then it really helps when you are either blogging or you're at least doing stuff, at least in sort of, you have activity that they can scrape. That'll help in your rankings. And then for the AI, I'm going to have to take a pass on that because I see the AI all the time. I use my own AIs, but I see the AI all the time. And I didn't know that they would choose someone. I could type it now, but I don't have enough time to do that. So, great question. If somebody wants to send me that one offline, I can look into it.
And we did have one that came right out of your evaluation of websites and then email. And you talked about the importance of that email signature. And man, do I agree. Also, with the placement of addresses and the availability of a phone number and a website because so many are disappearing. But someone had asked this: do you ask your board members to update their email signatures during end of year as well? So people are starting to say, in their email signatures that they're affiliated with you. And I might add, what about on LinkedIn or other
For
places where they
sure.
be
Why
flying your
not?
flag?
Yeah, it was, believe me, it was a heavy lift. I had pushback when we did staff. So we had 23 staff members and they had all different. And I explained to the executive director why this works. And he thought about it. He said, yeah, we're going to do it. So we went to our management meeting and he told all the managers to have all your staff within 24 hours to create. And you can do whatever timeline. Have a signature. Ken will send out the template and we will do this for this Christmas or holiday season. We did it. And see, what I can do is set up in Google Analytics. I can know where my links are coming from, okay, on my website. So, and we made tens of thousands of dollars, because now I got 23 people making, and that's what's called an implied ask, implicit ask, okay, because it's not a hard ask. Please support it. Please visit our website this holiday season to support Beans Cafe. And it's just in italics, and it's just a soft ask. And it's going out from 23 instead of just one person, or really my team. I had 4 people on my team.
Ken, we have other questions, but we
I
don't have any
know.
more time. And it just means that people need more from you. So once again, you know where to find Ken now. It's in the chat, but also, Ken, if you wouldn't mind, just for those who are listening, if you could just share once again an email address and maybe how you'd like people to reach out to you.
Yeah, my email address is ken@denalifsp.com, Denali FSP. And you can also go to the website, which is denalifsp.com, www.
Terrific. Thank you so much for all this, Ken. And thank you, everybody, for not only being a part of this today, but for the great questions. I'm sorry we couldn't get to every single one, but at least you know how to get to the Oracle himself. He's sitting right there. And I hope you'll join us again when he revisits the series in one of our frontline sessions on a Tuesday and talks about his new book that will come up in March. But until then, you'll just have to enjoy this recording, share it with your colleagues, make sure that they're doing all the things that they need to do as well. We'll look forward to seeing you all next Thursday or next Tuesday. Until then, take care. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.